Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our September 16th meeting of our Government Relations Committee. Starting at the top of the agenda here, attendance is taken and we are all present and accounted for. Number 2 on the agenda, approval of the agenda. Is there anything that anyone sees that needs to be added to the agenda? Okay, so then looking for a motion. Mayor Bailey, seconded by Councillor Oakley. All those in favor? Okay. So declaration of pecuniary interests. If anyone has any, you can let us know if it arises. So then adoption of the minutes from the previous meetings, 4.1. So these are the committee minutes from April the 12th. Looking for motion, Councillor Oakley. Seconded by Mayor Bailey. All those in favor? Excellent. Okay, number 5, staff reports. Alison, I will turn it over to you for 5.1, government relations strategy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to combine, if it's okay with committee, 5.1 and 5.3 because they really go together and they're both verbal. There seems to be a bit of a movement or consensus, at least amongst our neighboring municipalities, of some disappointment with the results or lack thereof coming out of the AMO delegations. And there's been some discussion about what the overall government relations strategy should be, whether the AMO delegations are the best use of our time and resources, or if there's another way. So it's not necessarily saying we shouldn't do them, but we're not seeing maybe the results that we would like to see. And is there perhaps a better way and or something that we can supplement to our strategy? Second of all, we did do a number of delegations this year, Roma, Good Roads, and to AMO, and I thought it might be a good idea for this committee to talk about what our overall strategy is going to be for the next year, so that we can get ahead of those delegations and make sure that we're well prepared with the information that council is going to need, that all of the delegations can be vetted through council so that everybody's on the same page, and that we can be a bit more strategic in how we approach those. So open to discussion, but that's what I sort of wanted to put on the table for today.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Discussion, committee, Councillor Oakley.
Yeah, thank you, Alison, and thank you, Chair. I think part of something that, or at least what I noticed out of this year's delegations with SCORE, and particularly as we're heading into a year where there's a lot of, well, there's certainly going to be a federal election next year and rumors of there being a provincial election next year. I think we're missing an opportunity in delegating to the opposition parties, particularly as they're heading into campaign mode, that we might have more influence on, certainly their campaign strategy, campaign policy, and, where otherwise, obviously, being in a majority government situation provincially, there wasn't a ton that they could do. With the election potentially coming up, that might change. So I think there's an opportunity there to delegate to all 3 of the opposition parties, if and when we can, on sort of our general priorities.
Mayor Bailey, any thoughts?
Yep. Through you, Madam Chair, I think the opportunity is still with the conference. I think because they're all going to be there, and I think most of the best conversations and friendships and deals have been made again in the hallways and in smaller meetings on our own, especially since we are a named committee appointed by our county, that we should be looking for our own meetings. And as I said before, when we had that whole sort of kerfuffle about is it a meeting or is it a delegation, and I certainly still see the difference between a delegation and a meeting. We could still sit in on our delegations if just because we're part of something different, whether it be the wardens or whether it be SCORE. But I think we need to have our own opportunities to see if there's any appetite from ministers that we want to talk to not just have a delegation, but to have a meeting when we're all in Ottawa or Toronto, or hopefully never again in London, all those kinds of places. But I mean, the tools are there, the people are there, the desire is there. I think the reputation of the county will be something that will work for us. People like to talk to us, and they know that we're not going to rip their heads off, and that's always a good thing. So I think we should maybe try to do not just our delegations, because I think that's part of what we signed up for with SCORE and for boards. But I think we should go after our own real meetings where we could talk for more than 3 minutes and actually get some things done. That's my take on that.
Councillor Oakley?
Through sort of that same line of thought, I think it would be an excellent idea to try to arrange a sort of Queen's Park Day, so that we can go there in person, meet with multiple ministers, opposition, so on and so forth, in a format that's going to allow us for more speaking time and more free-flowing conversation, as opposed to, you know, the 15 minutes in and out, and they have listened to 100 other municipalities on that day. And then potentially even, you know, whether or not we get any traction, but even looking at doing the same thing federally. I think as well, we sort of, given that we don't typically have presence at FCM and all that stuff, I think we're underutilizing our federal representatives locally, and certainly that relationship with the federal government in general.
Well, it's funny. I have Queen's Park Day ? Written on my paper as well. And I think that's kind of that. I agree with both of my colleagues in that. I think the delegations play a role, either as a check-in on something that we've maybe been working on with them, or as an introductory. But I would like to see some more follow-up in between those conferences, whether it's at Queen's Park Day or whether it's trying to arrange a meeting where we have a bit more time that we can more thoroughly discuss whatever the issue is. I know when I sat in the very first Roma conference with SCORE with the Minister of Education, it was from that meeting that then we were able to get a meeting with his senior staff that was more of an hour long, and we were able to actually give some more ideas and context for where we were coming from, and it felt really productive. And then there was further meetings after that. So I think if we could try and kind of replicate something like that, where we have that kind of introductory conversation, but then we can have a more fulsome discussion with whoever the minister is for whatever the topic might be, and more importantly, even their staff, because we all know that's where who holds the keys typically is the senior staff. So I would definitely be in favor of that. And then hopefully, Allison, to your point, then that provides a bit more of a runway to have those conversations at council, and make sure that going into those delegations, or if we do, you know, have a day where we're going to go down and there's others that are interested in joining, we can make sure there's lots of time for that. Mayor Bailey?
Allison was first. Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. We could even go one step more casual and have the senior staff and the minister or whatever meet us at a restaurant or a place outside of the Hill and outside of Chambers. No one's ever said no to me when I've asked for people to come either here. I mean, if it's a long way away and they're busy, they probably would say no. But I mean, mayors and opposition leaders have come here and gone across the street with me and met with me and Sue Foxton and other people when we've asked them to. You know, when they're really busy, I'm sure they'd rather meet us in Toronto. But I mean, there's all kinds of great restaurants and things that they would know their favorites. And I think doing that and having a longer lunch, is something too that's even better, because it takes the politics right away from the room, the surroundings, and maybe sometimes we should meet with the ministers too without our elected MPs and MPPs. I sit on a hospital board that you know that just is forming now, sort of steering group, and we were asked to bring names forward to sit on that group. And already an MP that I've never met that's going to be representing St. George and Glenn Morris has been told he'd be a perfect fit for our hospital board, and I can't imagine why he would be, because he doesn't know us. And for the new structure of the new regions and the new, yeah. So I'm just saying, I think sometimes just us talking to just them could do us a lot more good. Well, make it more successful.
One before I go to you, Allison, further to that, perhaps it's even more if we have something that's worth having them come and see themselves. You know, like the hospital is a good example. Like, have the minister invite them out, come and see it, and you know, go through it with them so that they can see for themselves what we're talking about. 'Cause sometimes it's easy to turn and look the other way when it's not staring you right in the face. I mean, it depends on the topic and whether there's something we could show and tell, but that's one. Allison, I'll go to you and then to you, Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just I guess a question for clarification, and maybe this is still for discussion, but would you like staff to come back with a few options of how we may approach this in terms of whether it be a Queen's Park Day or something local, or maybe a combination of both? Come back with a few options.
Councilor Oakley?
Through the chair, yes, I think that would be excellent. And sort of further to all this conversation, I think as well, one of the things that limits us in those delegations, and it seems to go back and forth depending on the ministry, which conference, is oftentimes we've not been able to bring organizations that we're advocating on behalf of, like for example in Roma, where we weren't able to bring the raw carrot into the room for the conversation we had with the Ministry of Children's Services, I think it was. But having sort of a separate event, organizing it separately, we'd certainly be able to actually have those people in the room. For example, our Roma our AMO delegation in regards to the agricultural impact assessment, we'd actually be able to have BFA in the room with us and being able to hear directly from the horse's mouth itself, as you would put it. So.
So Allison or Breyer, do we need a motion for that? Or just is that staff direction? Okay. Okay, so if there's no further discussion, Allison, unless there was anything else you wanted from that conversation at all? You got enough? Okay, excellent. So 5.2 then, we'll go to you, Breyer, for the Roma conference delegations.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So just some information, the 2024 Roma Conference will take place on Sunday, January 21st to Tuesday, January 23rd of 2024 in Toronto. Delegation registration information is not available yet, but at this time, staff are happy to take any direction.
Okay, thanks, Breyer. So any initial thoughts on delegations for Roma? Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair, so I have a couple things written down. Opposition parties, I think, just for general asks, I think the way that actually scored it was excellent, sort of with the binder of all of our sort of overarching strategic goals for those delegations. Ministry of Health, I think it'd be important just to go there and reinforce the budget ask, as that would be rapidly approaching their budget process. I think there's an opportunity to go to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and reinforce our agricultural impact assessment ask, given that we had pretty positive feedback from Minister Flack, but ultimately the final decision maker on that file would be the Minister of Municipal Affairs. And as we're approaching our own budget and having those conversations in regards to funding streams for intimate partner violence, I think there's an opportunity to meet with either the Minister of Children's Services or Minister of Women's Affairs on that particular topic.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I also think we should be speaking with Mr. Rickford, Aboriginal Affairs. At that meeting we had for the hospital, representative of Six Nations and New Credit spoke against the city of Brantford and their relationship and how they feel about the city of Brantford, and it wasn't very good. And I just want to be able to again separate that we are a separate municipality with separate ideas and separate goals. And I think that it would be good to have the county of Brant, because we are in good standings with the both the reserves, or both the and I think we need to speak to them and make sure that they're still okay with us and that we're doing exactly what they want. And because I think we are, but I would still rather speak to Mr. Rickford, Minister Rickford, and make sure of it.
Any other thoughts? And to that point, kind of separate from Roma, I wonder if maybe, I know Mayor Bailey, you've met with Chief Hill and the Mississaugas on many occasions, but maybe we should start to think about planning a meeting with our committee with both of those First Nations communities. Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, and through you, Madam Chair, I think we should do that sooner than later, just because they want to be involved in our lighting of our Christmas tree here in Paris, and they want to set up a booth or some sort of a just something, probably selling things that they make. So they want to be part of that. So I think maybe if all three of us went and got that in place first, and as we're there talking about that, maybe another thing on our agenda would be the idea of a joint services, joint council meeting. They want it taken back from a three council meeting to a 2 council meeting. Right now, for the first meeting, just us and them. And then, depending on how that goes, then we'll investigate whether we can go back to a tri-city or tri-county meeting with the city of Brantford. But right now, I think we could fast track the involvement with Christmas, and then we could also fast track the joint services meeting, joint council meetings with us and them, and maybe they'll want to host it. They've just had their council chambers redone. They're very proud of it. So maybe we could go there for it instead of expecting that it would be here. But maybe Chief Hill would like to host it. So I'll make a motion for staff to contact Chief Hill's office and say that we'd like to meet, and we'd like to maybe see their new council chambers. I've seen it, but we won't. You haven't seen it, so Lucas wants to see the new council chambers, and maybe they'd like to host it, and we can talk about Christmas on the agenda. And then the urgency, I think there is urgency of the two of us getting together as a joint council. I'll make that motion.
Councillor Oakley, second? Yep, Councillor Oakley.
Further to that point, I think there is certainly a lot of opportunities that we can work together with them. So I would love to see this come to fruition. I know I just saw a CBC, I believe it was CBC news spot on Six Nations and some of the challenges they're having with drinking water on Six Nations, which is saddening that this community is struggling with safe drinking water, and the federal government saying that they have it when they clearly don't. So I think there's certainly lots of opportunities to work with them there. So.
Okay, Briar, do you have enough to go on for Roma for now? Excellent.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to ask a question of clarification in terms of sort of following a new procedure. Would you like staff to come back with draft outlines of the delegations as noted for approval by this committee that can then be vetted through council prior to Roma? Understanding that we may not get all those delegations, but at least we're prepared with information. And a follow-up to that, Mayor Bailey mentioned a delegation with Minister Rickford. Perhaps we could speak with Six Nations about if there's any opportunity for a joint delegation at the same time, if there's any issues that we can perhaps jointly advocate with them for.
Again, Madam Chair, I don't think the relationship between Mr. Rickford's office and Six Nations is quite the same as ours. I just, it might be, might be counterproductive for us, but you could ask. I think that the new chief is very forward. She says it the way it is, and if there is a problem, she wouldn't accept that. So she'll tell us whether that can't go through. But it would be nice if we can't get our own delegations for the ones that we want that we've just mentioned. I don't want to try to stick them on the end of a warden's or a score. I don't want to just stick it in as a. If we can't get our own, then let's leave it alone till we ask again, and we can maybe go see them when it's not about the convention. It's just about a meeting, because I don't know that any of them would say no to us, but it might be another drive to Toronto that we might have to take. But I if we don't get our own delegation, let's not use it as a delegation of 3 minutes. I think they're important enough that we have our own meetings. That's what I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think there is value in joining the SCORE and the Warden's Caucus delegations if the opportunity is there. But yeah, if we have some of these more specific issues, then we probably shouldn't try to tack them on to theirs. That said, if the general theme is the same and there is the opportunity to use it as an example in one of those bigger ones, then that's probably okay. But okay, so moving on to other business. Oh, good call. Thank you, Briar. So all those in favor of Mayor Bailey's motion about setting up the meetings with Six Nations? All those in favor? There we go. Okay, so now moving on to other business. I realize I forgot to add my one item, so as long as it's okay and the committee will indulge me. I did want to mention that I think it might be good, given the announcement last week from the Ministry of Infrastructure, that we send a nice follow-up to Minister Surma, just thanking her for the work that their ministry has done and that they've seen value in our project in St. George, so that we're able to move forward. I think that kind of direct communication with the minister would probably be a good gesture. And then I was also going to mention that Minister Flack is in the county, the Minister of Agriculture is in the county this morning, making an announcement. So depending on what that is, maybe we could send a note to him just saying thank you for picking the county as the backdrop for that. So other than that, anyone else have any other business that they've thought of, like me? Mayor Bailey?
Well, getting the, through you, Madam Chair, getting the money the other day was really quite nice. But it also sparked everybody up, and they said we shouldn't have taken it. And the minute you take it, you're joining the troops to build houses. And I think it got kind of nasty at a couple of spots, and I just didn't answer anyone, but they see now that we've bought into the government money and taken it, and which means that things are going to happen. So I think we should have a backup plan. I think communications did a good job having that piece ready for us when we accepted that. But there's going to be more and more of that, where you're going to start seeing, people moving dirt and streets getting gridded, the grid start for the subdivisions and stuff. So St. George is going to start seeing real things very soon. And I know that just accepting the check made it seem like we were now partners with the government to ruin St. George. The way we've ruined Paris is exactly the way it was written, which was very hurtful. Because first of all, I don't think Paris is ruined at all. And I think that we've got our eye on St. George. So I don't like that kind of negativity when it's a wonderful thing that we got $34 million. It's a lot of money. And so I think we have to just be aware, especially Councillor Kyle and Councillor McAlpine, that it's going to be seen as a partnership between now the mayor and the two councillors, as a partnership for growth. And it's nothing like that, of course, we know that. But as it's going to be perceived, we've got to be careful that we don't have something ready to go in the newspaper, which sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't. But I just noticed that check acceptance seemed like a partnership for growth. And although it is sort of, we have to have the money before we can do what we need to do. But they're going to see that as a bad thing, not a good thing. So I think we have to be aware and maybe have communications always aware that when we have things like that, and you say the minister's here in the county again today, so that might be another one where we better have something or could have something ready for what he's going to say. I don't know what he's going to say. I certainly hope they haven't come to eat our animals. But
I don't think so.
okay, I just hadn't heard anything. I just want our animals to be safe. I just want that to be in the record.
Thank you for that, Mayor Bailey. No, I believe the Minister of Agriculture, the announcement is around money available for sustainability efforts on farms. So, Councillor Oakley.
Through the chair, on the topic of so how some of the public may feel about when we do get these funding announcements, I think it's important to highlight, particularly with the $35 million that we got for the Water Systems Enabling Fund, or the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund, is that this is growth that's mandated anyways, it's approved anyways, it's going to happen anyways, and it's 100% a win that it's not going to come from their tax dollars now. That they're seeing a subsidy on their property tax for growth that has to happen regardless. So I think there's certainly ways to market it as a win. That's not us selling anyone out for certain, and certainly as much as the growth is scary and there's change that comes with it, it's also certainly necessary, as there's many people in our community who need those homes that are going to be built. So.
Really?
Through you, Madam Chair, there's an event coming up sponsored by the Brantford Chamber of Commerce highlighting me at a luncheon, the Harvest Lunch, which is coming, I think, on the 27th. The 27th. So I think I might take that opportunity to change what I was going to say and what I was going to do to this kind of thing. We've received this and we are. And I think it's time for us to mention how many houses there's going to be so that there's no surprise and that we don't, it's really out of our hands, but we just we're now elected to make sure that it can be the best it can be during the growth, but the growth doesn't belong to us. The growth belongs to the province, and we are here to manage it and to make it the best it can be. And I think I'll speak to that on the 27th. I think I'm going to, because it's just me speaking on the 27th with the Chamber of Commerce, I think I'll be able to clear up a lot of things that have been whipping around as rumors and as bad things when they're not bad things at all. The big dig is a good thing because of what it's going to produce. The money for St. George is a good thing because of what's going to happen. And I think it's time for us to start talking about these things as positive results to uncomfortable beginnings.
Well, and I would say that's a good point, and Councillor Oakley's points as well. Like, I think it's the reality of municipal government is that we're nonpartisan, and we've got to work with all of our partners regardless of party and color and whatnot. And sometimes when there's all kinds of stories in the community going around, it can be challenging at times. And like you said, when we get a $35 million grant, it can look like we're striking a deal or whatnot. But I think to Councillor Oakley's point, there is the important piece of that story is that they're stepping up with the money that's required to do the growth that they've mandated for that infrastructure that would otherwise have to come out of our county tax base. And we all know we don't have the money to do that continually. So I think there's definitely the communications piece around that. But yeah, we need to make sure we're saying the right things, and we're thanking and giving credit where credit is due, but also maintaining that, hey, like, look at this as a win because this means we're not having to put that on the taxpayers, and regardless of what the topic is, but for this one specifically. So, yeah. So I don't have any other business unless anyone else has anything else to add. Seeing none. So that brings us to the end of our agenda then. So the next meeting will be at the call of the chair. We'll maybe plan something in a month or two. Because if the staff team is going to bring back some options for us to take a look at, we can maybe look at that. Yeah, Councilor Oakley.
Actually, through the chair, as well, if I could just sort of ask for, like, obviously we had our specific requests for delegation items, but if staff members have any particular ideas of things that projects that they think we should delegate on, I'd love to hear those as well, because obviously, staff are the ones who are actually doing the work and are most familiar with our needs. So if there's anything that we feel like we've missed, that staff has any ideas on things we could delegate on, I'd love to hear it in that report too.
Mayor Bailey.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I was just going to say, if staff finished an agenda, that maybe you could just shoot it to us before the next meeting, just so if it's not exactly what we were thinking of, at least we could massage it there, not have to wait for the next meeting, because then it would be too close to January's to the timing of the conference. So maybe you just shoot us an agenda a draft agenda that we could tweak, or it might be right on it. Hopefully it's right on, but if it's not, we could add something to it. Or is that okay with everybody? Sometimes because of the cycles and because of the timing, we would be scurrying to have an agenda we like better too close to the convention, I think.
Sounds good. Okay, so then motion to adjourn. Councilor Oakley.